I'm starting. Guys, I'm starting to record our call. I hope everything will be good. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's kinda working right now. Okay, so let's start then.
It's working?
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's start.
So, I want to remind you that today we are gathered here all together from 3 different countries right now and 3 different parts of the world, which is Buenos Aires, Petersburg, and Yekaterinburg. Some of us from Argentina, some of us from Germany, and some of us from Russia, and we are here to discuss the concepts of artistic knowledge. How can we work with this? How can we work with the medium that describes it? It's also the part of the exhibition, which was considered to be a series of mediums like video, time-based medium, still image, and the text. And right now we have a Fabian Saul with us, who will represent the text. And yeah, let's start then.
Wow. Hi, Fabian.
Hi. Hey, Lucas. Hey, Protey. Hello from St. Petersburg. So first of all, maybe I want to say, because I kind of dropped in on your ongoing conversation over the years, and we already started a while ago in Berlin, that I think I remember we had a glass of wine in Berlin where we started speaking about this different materials, different mediums you're working with, which is kind of your main overlap. And for me, that's the key element there, is that all what you do is actually connected to this idea of transformation, maybe also translation, or maybe even to go a bit further, like metamorphosis. I'm not sure if that's the correct English term, but I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely.
And I mean that in also like a material sense, but also the energetic sense. And I think that is the first key moment for me, looking at how your work corresponds with text, is that the text itself often has something of a immaterial connotation, like it is something that has a certain neutrality. When I look at your work, I see that neutrality is actually transformed into something you can touch. So it loses the element of being just material, and it comes down to the earth, very non-religious, secular sense.
Yeah, I feel more connected with the part that you mentioned. It's more like metamorphosis thing, because basically, from my perspective of seeing my artistic research or process, or how I'm moving into these lines that I consider new or fresh in my process. It's always a kind of object of solidification of that material. Maybe like if you from your side, you're more like into text and writing, and Protey also have like a different way of representation. And that's how we probably land in this kind of ABC process, and how we play with those layers or elements, right? And yeah, then I look at the basic move and cross in between, like from video, canvas, 3D objects, surface, book, pages, frames. I see it more connected in my perspective, more with like kind of metamorphosis of elements. Or
Yes.
And as I feel it, it's not like the metamorphosis, but it's the huge network which is actually connected, which connecting the different mediums. So I started for the exhibition. I started with the book, which also for ages have been a symbol of archiving the knowledge, archiving some material, data, images or text. And then through that book I came up with this canvas illustration, and finish up with the video, which is trying to explain things that happened in a canvas and a book. And also the book is usually in our culture is a symbol of something that is really important, and this is like sharing the knowledge, sharing some information, to give us to spread the word. But the video reacts to this like the knowledge is just like pointless, because when you meet a person who made this book, you actually realize that there is nothing that he can tell you, because you can't understand anything. So this is a question about you understanding the text and trusting the text or trusting the image, because like in our time the video is much more trustworthy because it's considered documentary material, and the canvas is still like a bit a decorational one, like it's referencing to the art itself, like the old traditional material, and the video is more about like pop culture.
Then also the question is, in this process, or like you said, the network of these different mediums that you use, there's something underlying where the question is, with each medium that this information, let's say, travels through, there's almost like a new perspective onto that same material. I mean, like, it's not like you translate it from medium to medium to medium. Also in Luca's work, I remember there's this object which comes from, let's say, digital, more connected to the idea maybe of an algorithm, like also almost like a short moment within an endless kind of space-time of digital algorithms, and it kind of travels onto this towel or into this 3D object. And I think the interesting part here is that there is something added to it. Like, it's not like the same information again, or it's not like a translation, but it's more of a process of actually going deeper into that same information. This is at least how I see it. That it's a depth that is great.
I think one of the part that we go towards and the exhibition, or at least in the show that we have, is basically when Protey mentioned the books as object that kind of represents since millions of moments what the relation that everybody has to knowledge, right? Or at least it represents the object that we are exposed to receive more information, and we give power to elements. When it comes to my side, this like kind of freezing of visualizing this endless 3D synthetic object real time, and then how I can take it out and give power to another element that in this case was a tower for very personal introspective reasons. That it's also like my way of giving values to objects that probably everybody has it, right? Mm-hmm. Are basically more personal than I don't know, than worldwide known as canonic, was iconic elements of how we concentrate information. Yeah. It's a bit more personal the way that we maybe it's also like in the show we put two chairs. I mean, if we have to mention objects or elements that represent information, concentrate info, or represent knowledge in somehow, maybe we can start talking about books, school, knowledge, institution, chairs, teacher. I don't know, it's always related with educational backgrounds. But when we are trying to be more precise, especially in those moments that we consider new and fresh, in my perspective, it was about to identify which are those objects that are basically connected directly with us after we jump out of this abstraction, and which objects are the first one that touches that period that we consider new. For example, I don't know, could be swimming, could be taking a shower, could be, there's always objects that kind of represent. So but socially, they're not like considered as a kind of, there's not a norm, they're not canonic.
But the interesting thing is also when you use the term knowledge now, also something that is not yet manifested. Like, we can also think of knowledge as something as you say, that is in a canonic sense already defined, something we can accept as a kind of collective truth. But you also mentioned another element of this idea of knowledge, which I find super interesting. It is that moment of initiation that is new, that moment of something realizing, which is almost like a way of realizing kind of a repeated something like a repeated rebirth almost, like I think of a process of you always with every element kind of jumps to us and creates that connection to what we personally receive as something new or refreshing or something like a different insight, that this is actually a very different idea of knowledge, which I think is super interesting to point out.
So the knowledge stops to be a passive process and turn out to be like active position of the person who asks about something. And knowledge right now is as I get it also, like as we discuss it in using this through the exhibition materials. It's a process of experimenting with the whatever we are looking at or working with or experimenting with. So that's one of the instruments of exploration throughout like the overall world. And it's super funny that when you start with a new knowledge like gathering some new material, that can be a word like knowledge, like new knowledge. So yeah, that's the instrument. Knowledge is not something that passive, like knowledge is not only your background. Knowledge can be something that you will gain in the future, because you need to know something to go through different paths or follow the path to some point. The point can be imagery, imaginative. You can be or maybe not sure that this point is also really do exist, but this is just the knowledge that leads you through the path to find out, is this point you're referring to is real or not. And if that's real, it turns out to be your background. If it's not real, the result, the null result of that experiment will be also your background, right?
Yeah, and also like in the most like simple, or maybe like into the routine of what we go daily. Like and my situation is sometimes it go very close to how many things we consider that are new every day or each day. Like how many things we are like realize that they are like kind of fresh and definitely can come like new. And how we decide to put it on the follow of knowledge, intelligent, smart, how we mirror that physical reaction to others that we learn and we appropriate it. So from my side, like the way that I crystallize or kill the digital file, it's about taking decisions, right, without being forced to land in infinite field of references, right? Because that's the part that we probably have seen things, or have listened things, or have been watching elements that can be directly or can be probably manipulated. These fresh elements or fresh moment. So for me, it was about like crystallizing, visualizing infinite possibilities in a synthetic 3D sculpture digital tool, and then how we can choose an element that can represent it as an object, as a canvas. And the third part is that how we can kill that and give it more power, or how we can make a digital memory important and make it fragile or digital again in a 3D object. That's mostly my way of walking through this each day things, or how we cannot even land an educational institution that kind of certify those new knowledge moments or something.
So it means also remove. Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Do you really need Lucas to have some institution that will somehow certify your knowledge. So is it important for you that the knowledge is actually something that you give in from a board, or this is actually you can trust your own like guts or feelings? As we talk about like the artistic like knowledge, like not science one. It's really important maybe to dream about really crazy or illogical options, like in terms of trying to know something more about the world that actually none of the institutions ever thought of. So what do you think about this institution like certification?
Yeah, I think we have talked many times about like my experience with schools in general was about certification, right? Like approving things, even when you didn't get it, right? So when I'm trying to, it's super funny also because I think I also tell you my relation with my mom as a teacher, and the huge and very tiny line like separate the way that I was learning and the moment that I was being a son and the moment that I was in school on my house. So the way that I was basically considering like those moments, situation, books, school, chairs, time for learning, time for processing was about proving, getting more certifications, and even when I was like in the best quality or qualification, I don't know how to say in English, I was not even feeling like was based on that. Okay, we're probably now in this field, or maybe the show is basically means something in our artistic practices, right? We are not talking or trying to demystify knowledge as a term. We're just basically talking about drawings that can represent processes, right? In your case, how situation can be translated from real-time visualization. It's basically like a very internal process, how we can be excluded of some canonic way of crystallizing, or maybe like who certify that we will learn something.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
to go back
like
Sorry, continue.
Yeah, no, it's basically like my way of developing this is not trying, or at least playing with those lines and the way that I was getting access to information, right? Which places were and where I was on that time. So when I'm working basically in digital platform and artistic practices, I'm basically talking about this, but not playing with those elements like school or object. I'm just basically talking about the places, the elements, the multi-random choices, and the real-time possibilities, and how we give them power, and how they are still new for us, trying to be kind of isolated from the norms, let's say.
And also removing that comfort of the set of references that you were referring to before. I mean, that seems to be almost the active part that Protey was speaking about, that to remove this comfortness of being always able to refer to something like a form that already exists, but being kind of perpetuating maybe that also childlike curiosity where everything we're confronted with on a daily basis can be taken as something like a new impulse, something we don't know yet, but we'll get to know. And that seems to be also like an empowerment almost in your work, that might be that element that Protey was speaking about as knowledge as something active rather than something passive as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And getting rid of the comfort can be very can be very liberating, right? Getting rid of that comfort of set of
I think we talked the first time with you, Fabian, talk about like imagine like the moments that you realize or you think that you landed in a point that you rediscover, or you just get information that for you is super fresh, right? But the moment that you start sharing it, or you move through a field that there's another person or another situation that you realize that you're not the only one, it's the moment that we are trying to develop a dialogue in everyone. That's basically schoolmate in general, right? We are talking about this because we have things in common. But when there's no things in common, it's because we develop internally process that those fresh moments or this knowledge, personal elements that they are new for us, they're not still connected with the others. And then when it becomes the references, that's how we start talking and sharing about this. Like, okay, like a writer from the 80s and a new poet from Berlin, probably they're talking about the same. But if there is no medium, or if there is not an institution or element in between, they're still new, they're still fresh. They're like isolated in different times, even without references. That's basically, and I see, for example, in the way that Protey in the video, like lecture situation. Can you tell about this, Protey?
Yeah, sure.
Just to finish, I just definitely feel like the way that everybody gets exposed to this teaching, or there's a person giving you so much information and precise information, and at the same time you cannot even follow, right?
Yes,
with
that's actually
with the same position. It's the same moment that we are exposed to something completely new, but when we are close to someone that probably get the message, we get the message
without
of the person
telling it.
that get it first. Yeah.
Yes, that's
It's like kind of we share the feeling of getting, understanding something. But when there's a distance in between, when there is a lecture, when there's a talk, and we don't have the access to, or we get lost, I think we kind of make collision with others, and then we synchronize. And I feel like the lecture is the best example of this part of the talk. Like,
yeah, it's really connected to what you just said, Lucas, because during my experiments, when I was like trying to share some information with people, it wasn't like the technical one. Yeah, I'm speaking about the information which means something for me, and usually it's pretty much informal and really important. And I came up with the thing that I really can't explain the most important parts of what to do, or I don't know how to think, or how to raise a question, how to ask a question, what kind of question should it be, and it's really a difficult thing to do, to translate that point of view. So I realized that few of the successes I had in my life, when I can say that my point of view being somehow adopted in a new person, was actually the moments when the person was already prepared to hear what I want to say. So basically, it turned out to be the idea, if you need to explain something, that actually makes you not to explain something, because you just don't need it. If you are already prepared to understand the thing, you don't need any like words or other like cultural symbols that you use on the daily basis, because you feel everything. Right now I'm sitting on the Ural Biennale of Ural, and there are so many, like on every Biennale, so many words about every artwork, and actually the feeling you have from the particular piece, that you can connect with the piece without even knowing something about it. You just feel like this. So returning back to the video about the lecture thing, I'm doing like over and over, repeating and explaining what I did before, because all the illustration materials in the video is actually my previous artworks that I use as illustration materials to prove a point, and at some moment there is no point at all, because there is no message like I can describe it like, in particular, but in the end the message is just about that, okay, this is the system of connection of absolutely maybe random spots, creating the network I've been telling you about in the first minutes of our conversation, because like I'm doing this over and over, and I'm putting this, and I try to just like show it with a finger, like to point out with a finger on that like point in space, but there is no ability for me to explain it clearly. Yeah, I think that's it.
But also what you were just saying about the Biennale situation you were just in, I mean, we all know this kind of relationship of the collective trying to face art, right? I mean, the explanations, the way that they kind of trying to define, maybe also excuse the artworks for what they are. I mean, trying to explain, you know, I did that, and yeah, it's like, okay, we all know. It's like almost really like a safety net for the actual experience of actual confrontation that could happen. And what you just described also with the sort of network algorithms that you're working with from a very personal perspective, it seems to be something that is situated before the text, right? I mean, when you have a confrontation that can have an impulse of complete the shock of the new knowledge, then it means also that you are observing in a zone that is before the text. I mean, before the words are found, or as you described it, even just for your own work, it's also something that is not working in the same logic of the language that we maybe communicate in right now, for example.
Yeah.
So that is the interesting element. You use maybe the similar symbols, but they have a new meaning and also a new relationship in that network that is created. And also, I like that idea that these symbols can have a new function and can be seen as also objects or something even we can touch. Also, you have that element. But also in the way that Lucas were mentioning before, that it also means that we can assemble these symbols in a new way, let's say 20 years later, and that does not mean that one is more right or one is more wrong or one did understand this.
Yeah,
you know,
and also the same objects. Yeah.
Yes,
Sorry
exactly.
to interrupt, but it's super interesting what you mentioned. It's also I'm really focused on which objects will represent those moments that we name it as knowledge. You know, right now it's clearly like if we have a towel hanging the most honest and fresh moment that I choose from a totally random real-time situation, and I try to solidify and crystallize and give it the power, right, and in an object. And at the same time we have a book or a canvas that have like so many references and time and history, right, and the way that how we visualize also information. So I'm also like thinking, when you mention like in the future, I don't know when, but which objects will represent that, right? If it's going to be still a book, or if from now on everybody consider towels those personal, fresh. I don't know. It's also like
me personally, I would choose towels. No, but you know, this is a question of also repetition, I think, because we are all familiar with the idea. Yeah, exactly. If we're all familiar, for example, with the concept of the window, and no one would question that the window is something we can all agree on exists, but it's still a very, very abstract fictional idea, and we have seen millions of windows in our life until we are fully understanding the concept of the window. That it's not a God-given fact. It's just like we are working with a repetition, and it's interesting that in a way. Sorry, just one more thought, because I'm thinking back to this idea of these algorithms and networks that Protey was speaking about. It's almost like these new relationships that can be found break up the pattern of repetition and show a completely new, which we would then call maybe insanity or craziness, because it's not the same set of references, but a new relationship of these objects which reveal a different quality. And all of a sudden, the objects that always had this one function that we all agree on become something new. And I think this is almost like a very deliberating, powerful, almost a form of resistance, I would call it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's also like we talk about the technique or technology that I use for the object, for the 3D glass laser picture. It's also the way that probably there is there is 90s technology. There is many technologies, not even futuristic yet, but still can be or could be used as a way of visualization, like memories or digital memories, or something like it's not VR, it's not artificial intelligence trying to focus. It's we have so many elements till now that we can use for give them power to those fresh or knowledge moments. That's basically maybe like the humor part that I was like trying to play during the show. A towel as a personal object, a 3D glass picture as a kind of image of a digital file dying or given the power, and I kind of definitely find interesting the zigzag dialogue that the six pieces start to have on the room.
Yeah.
And that's
the funny thing, I think I need to mention it just for the text, because we spoke about it like many times on the opening night, that we have that dialogue between the mediums, like the towel, and the 3D printing, like laser cut hologram thing, which is super digital, like super synthetic, like super future. And the book, we've been also speaking about that, like is a funny symbol that it's actually something about like real world which is dying, which you because the book was like that old. I've been hanging around with that for a few months, so all the cover turned out to be like really old, and it's under the glass of the table, which somehow make it the oldness of the book make it virtual, because you can't even really understand, and you can't open the book. That means that the book is actually not working as an object. It's just like a symbol of carrying some information. And your digital file, Lucas, turned out to be like a real sculpture. At the moment, the file of 3D model turned out to be real sculpture, which you can think of touching at least, or you can have a 360-degree view on this.
Yeah,
so that makes it
there,
real.
but
And the
you
book
cannot even get
you can't.
It's
You
there,
can't
but you cannot even connect it. Yeah.
But also the good thing is that it gives the illusion of being touched in Lucas' case, I like that because it's almost like also still hidden away, like a precious object that we can circle it, like, we know it from a museum situation, like you can, but you can't touch it actually, which is almost giving it this iconographic mode, which then we confront with a different form of respect or interest already, because we have that illusion of a haptic sensation, but we can't touch it. It's like going to the new museum and trying to touch Nefertiti. I mean, you can try, but you
and it's also funny because things that you can touch in kind of represent more power or importance, something
exactly,
like this, or places that you cannot get access to also means something big, or at least kind of a delicate relation after you realize that you can get access to or you can touch them. Your physical reaction changed immediately, and that's the way that we give power to objects, and that's the way that probably we give importance to situations because they were blocked in some part.
Oh, and that actually creates a really interesting for me moment, that the part of like empowering through the force field, like for the empowerment from the shield of not touching, makes two things actually. The empowerment by making it fragile, like something fragile that you can touch because you can break it, or you can touch it because it has to be somehow guarded by the, like, I don't know, something like more powerful than you. So in the end, you as a human being think of the precious objects from 2 points. One of the hardest and like bigger and bigger than you, and other object, they are fragile and you can break them. So touching something is a really human idea of like of making it of keeping someone's hand or hug someone, it makes like the contact really intimate. And whenever the moment created of not touching anything makes a distance, so the knowledge as a process can also be like the fragile knowledge, some maybe secret or something like this that you can never speak of or you can never touch, like even with your thoughts, or the enforced knowledge, which is like propaganda thing or something like that, because it's being forced through the different channels, and you've been guided and you've been taught that this is the important one,
Yeah, definitely.
And also, we should mention. Maybe we lost one last thought, because I think we also
we have
now
3:35
confronting the vague reality of our different time zones, and just saying one last thought is also that I would just wanted to add to these different qualities of touching that that I think it's also a strong statement, and again maybe a sign of resistance, to take that element, for example in Luca's case, this digital super digital object, into this fragile 3D situation, because it also means it's a way of choosing something, like almost like a messiah thing. That object is the chosen one because it has all of a sudden that attention to be in that situation where we have the illusion of being able to touch it, but we actually can't. And I think that is a very strong way to work with this knowledge on a very, very personal basis, by choosing elements rather than having them chosen by others and just repeating them.
Yes, to choose is also to know, or at least to try to experiment with something and get a result. The choosing is the knowledge.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
I think we talked in the beginning when we have like a pre-interview, and one of the final lines was about like this insecurity, right? Like, and where we find the moment that the choosing and making and making untouchable again, or like freezing the power, or I think it's moment about choosing without any boundaries regarding our artistic practices.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's basically like that's and basically we talk about the knowledge. Maybe just to finish this, we ended up not completing the sentence. I think we talked with Protey in the beginning. There's a word missing, and that's funny because it's basically at the same time it's very natural and honest to really don't have the right answer to fill it in. It's knowledge of
Of nothing.
Sorry, 1 second. Yes. Sorry, I don't speak Russian. Sorry, I think I was just approached by some security because I'm hiding behind the chocolate museum of St. Petersburg, and I was just approached by some security that I should leave. So, sorry, it will be a bit louder because I'm actually going out on the
I think
Nevsky Boulevard, which just sorry, unfortunately the loudest street that the city has. But
Fabian,
okay, guys, I'm still here. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. We got 40 minutes, and maybe we should finish our talk on Fabian being kicked out from the chocolate museum. That's I think that's an amazing moment.
Perfect.
I think that's perfect. We got it right.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Okay,
sorry for the interruption, Lucas, but I think we.
No,
yeah.
perfect.